the leap of faith, and the comfort zone is to your left, and then right at the tip of the cliff, you can jump into your sea of dreams, but fear is what's stopping you. It was from a decade ago, from when I wanted to start stand-up comedy, or maybe I had just started stand-up comedy. The one book I live by was this book called The Alchemist. What's so special about this book? But it's all the meanings behind life in the book. And it's really about living your dream. Cawfee Talk. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Cawfee Talk with Tara Cannistraci. Hope you are having a great morning so far. Hope you got that cup of Joey, because I'm an Italian American. No, cup of tea, whatever you want to drink this morning. Cheers, Jindan. That means 100 years. All right, I wanted to talk to you guys this morning about something I struggled with for a really long time. I know I touched upon this topic a little bit, telling you guys I was a stand-up comedian. I know you didn't, not stand-up comedian. I was a school counselor before I was a stand-up comedian, actually also while I was one, because I had to keep a day job because this didn't pay for the bills, and it almost doesn't any right now. But anyway, I wanted to talk to you guys about the leap of faith. You know, when I started doing the podcast episodes with Chaz, a lot of people were asking us questions about like, oh, you know, I always wanted to be an actor. I always wanted to be an actress, or I always wanted to do stand-up comedy. I always wanted to be a writer. A lot of times it was in the creative jobs that people were reaching out saying they always wanted to do, but they didn't do it because of reality or responsibilities or of the self-doubt. And I recently just got a phone call, in fact, from the woman I think I told you guys about who had called me, how I started my Italian words and phrases. She's actually renting the apartment that I used to live in. And she said, oh, I found this picture behind a bureau. Is it yours? And it was mine. It was a picture I bought in London from a street artist. And she had I loved it. She had drew this picture, and it says the leap of faith. And the comfort zone is to your left, and then right at the tip of the cliff, you can jump into your sea of dreams, but fear is what's stopping you. And it was from a decade ago, from when I wanted to start stand-up comedy, or maybe I had just started stand-up comedy. And I bought the picture off the street, and I couldn't find it, and she just found it this week, and I said, this is a really good topic for Cawfee Talk. Because I think I'm not a reader by any stretch of the imagination, although doesn't mean I'm not intelligent. I just never really got into many books. But the one book I live by was this book called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And when you first start reading the book, you're like, what? This is a book about a shepherd boy. Like, what is? It's almost like an elementary level read. It's like so simple, and you're like, what's so special about this book? But it's all the meanings behind life in the book. And it's really about, living your dream. And it has so many different meanings. I think if you read that book, it's called The Alchemist. If you read that book at any given moment in your life, you're going to find a different meaning in it. Like, it's literally like a Bible to me. Like, I can open it up and read a few pages and find meaning in it for something that's happening in my life. And reading it 10 years ago and reading it today, it's a different book. So check it out. It's an easy read if you're a reader, or you can also do audiobook. But it's a very popular book for that reason. I think it kind of depicts the fact that, like, from a very young age, we know kind of what we're meant to do or what we want to be. And I remember as a little girl, I would beg my mom, and I was like 6 or 7 years old. I would beg her to stay up on Saturday nights and watch Saturday Night Live. And she said I would come to her and tell her like who the host for the week was going to be, what movie they were in. Now, mind you, this is before the internet. It sounds so old. This is before you can Google where somebody was or what they're in. I was just so fixated on it. At that young of an age, I knew. And what I love so much about Saturday Night Live was which is not what I do, right? It's not my form of art today, but I loved the sketch comedy. I just thought it was so funny and so brilliant. And I was drawn to it. Very much so, too, with shows. Like, I grew up with my grandparents. A lot of us did, from the generation I come from, where our parents either started to work or we were, lived in the house with our grandparents. And my grandmother, I would watch I Love Lucy or the Carol Burnett show. And although Carol Burnett and and Lucille Ball were not stand-up comics, they were comedians. And it was their physicality that was so brilliant to me, and I thought that was so funny. And I remember my grandmother was a tough cookie, and she would laugh at those shows. And I remember thinking, wow, I was so I want to do that. I don't think I ever thought I wanted to, be a stand-up comic at that point, or even when I was watching SNL. I don't think I ever thought stand-up comedy was my platform, but I knew it was something in comedy and that I wanted to do stage. And I did. For a few years, I did sketch comedy plays in the city, and but like the book will tell you, and like we all maybe tell ourselves, we start to think that these dreams that we have aren't real life or couldn't be real jobs, and maybe society plays into us very much what we have to be, or you have to get a certain level of education, you have to get a certain level, you have to be able to pay your bills, or so we kind of push the dream off a little bit, or don't, kind of feel like it's unattainable. It's not within our reach. And I did that, which is why I became the school counselor, which I have to say, it was almost 2 decades of my life. And my former students find me on social media now, and they say things to me like, oh my God, Miss Cannistraci, I'm so happy you're living your dream. And I got to be very honest, they were part of my dream. Like, they were another dream. And I never thought I would have that feeling like I have for comedy, but I absolutely loved what I did for the 18 years that I did it in the Bronx. And it was just this other thing that I really wanted too. And I did it part-time. I did it part-time like a lot of actors or artists have to do it first. Not many of us are fortunate enough to be able to pay the bills or have parents pay for us so that we could, unfortunately, you can't go to school, graduate with a degree in comedy or acting and just become that job, where you can with other professions, even if it takes a really long time. Doctors have to go through residencies, lawyers, construction workers go through unions, different schools and trades and apprenticeships. Unfortunately, you can't just do that for comedy or any one of the arts and then be successful. Very rare do people become successful or can pay their bills on it right away. So when I saw this picture, it kind of really reminded me of that, taking that leap of faith, which I did. I left the school to become a full-time stand-up comedian. And let me tell you something. There are people that want to leave their jobs, that can't leave their jobs because they have responsibilities. They have to, and there are people who hate their jobs. I think the real struggle that I had for me was I knew how far. I did believe deep down that I could go further in comedy, but I also really struggled with the fact that I loved what I did, especially the last 2 years when I changed schools and got to be with my kids, my elementary school kids. They then went into the middle school, and I kind of followed them. And I got those middle school years out of them, which are, let me tell you, if you can work with middle school kids, then work with them, because nobody else wants to. They're hormonal, they're smelly, but I loved them. I lived for them. Comedy happened every day in that office at one point or another. It's very hard. It's very hard to pursue what you really wanted. I don't know if a lot of us are doing what we believed we always wanted to do as children or when we were young. And in the book, The Alchemist, the reason why I bring it up is because it talks about how we kind of know from the very beginning. So with that, and with your cup of coffee this morning, I wanted you guys to know that, again, you're not alone. I think it's very common. If any of you have felt that or have wanted to take a leap of faith. It could be in a relationship. It could be with asking somebody on a date. It could be with changing careers. It could be with having a child or committing to someone or getting married or getting divorced. It's hard. It's a hard decision to make. But you're not alone. Send me a message. I'm not a counselor anymore, but I do love having these conversations with you guys that are not always generated around comedy. I hope you got the message you needed to hear this morning. I took a leap of faith, and here I am. A couch in my living room in the morning, talking to you people, and I'm happy. I miss it. I miss the school. Not going to lie, I miss the kids. But I took a leap of faith, and it works out. It worked out for me. So I hope it works out for you. Have a great day, guys.
Cawfee Tawk.